Good evening. God bless. God bless, man of God. Bless you, brothers. Thank you for taking a moment to join me tonight, a few moments. Tonight's broadcast is not going to be very long. It's not going to be very enduring in length, but it's going to be powerful and necessary. Bless you. It is a happy birthday. All of my military buddies, especially my Marine buddies, this is the United States Marine Corps birthday all around the world, 245 years. And so I say Semper Fi to all of my leatherneck brothers out there. God bless you. Thank you for joining me for a few moments tonight. It is my hope for a few moments to share something about what we're doing tonight and what we're going to be doing on Tuesday nights. A More Excellent Way Ministry is a ministry that is aiming to be unique in our mandate to serve God. We're not a church in the traditional sense, nor do we aim to be. We have a mandate to honor God with a pursuit, a passionate pursuit for excellence in every day, in every area of our lives. That's our assignment. The goal is excellence or nothing. The standard is excellence or nothing. Excellence is in our name, and our appeal to men and women all across the world, wherever this broadcast reaches. And we have been fortunate to get feedback from as far away as Ghana, Tanzania, Pakistan, Korea, England, and all various parts of the United States. And I'm grateful for everybody tuning in and listening wherever they may be. But our appeal is to connect with and reach to the heart of every person out there and redirect their attention and reconnect them with their divine purpose. It is my assignment through these broadcasts to help each and every man, especially here on Tuesday night, every man, woman, and child, but on Tuesday night, I'm talking to the men. It is my assignment on each and every night to expose certain principles and precepts that I believe and I know to be a fact and how they will impact your life, reshape, remold, recast the vision. Every now and then, the vision of your true assignment gets blurry, and we need help to recast the vision and to clarify and redirect our aim and our attention in a certain direction that we might fulfill the very specific, exact reason for which we were created. You were created on purpose for a purpose. It is my assignment, my purpose to help men and women discover, realize, and fulfill to the maximum whatever that divine purpose is, knowing that from person to person, that purpose varies. But I certainly believe that inside of every purpose, and I'm broadcasting tonight here on Periscope and on Zoom, inside of that person, that purpose, there must be a passionate pursuit of excellence. Let me say at the outset that you ought to have in your personal constitution an aim to not allow anyone to be credited with being better at your craft than you are. If whatever your chosen craft is, whatever your area of service is, whatever it is your particular gifting or talent is, it ought to be your personal aim and standard, your personal conviction to not allow it to be accepted that there is someone better at that than you are. Why would you need to be in that arena and someone else be in that arena and be better? It ought to be said of you that you're better in that area. And that ought to be your personal charge and your personal commitment. And at the outset of Tuesday night, that is my goal. That is my aim. Now, let me highlight something I've just said a couple of times more. Tuesday nights is primarily for men. We do a broadcast on Thursday nights for women. Now, anyone's welcome to tune in and listen and contribute and participate. But I'm targeting men on Tuesday, and I'm targeting women on Thursday. And on Sundays, we're exposing and teaching and amplifying the word of God across the spectrum. Everybody is welcome. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that at the beginning and where we're aiming for, what we're trying to do. Brothers, I want to say at the outset, you are a king and nothing less. It was recently, and when I say recently, within the last 3 or 4 years of my life, that I experienced a set of breakthroughs and a set of blessings and a set of powerful moments where in those moments, God was revealing himself to me. And in so revealing himself, he revealed myself to me. I want to draw your attention to a scripture, and I'm not going to sermonize when we come here on Tuesdays. My objective, my methodology is not to sermonize, but just to talk and have a platform where men can feel comfortable listening and talking and sharing and walking away from the moment with a fresh perspective about who they are and what it is they need to do and what it is uniquely that they are called to do, what you're chosen to do. You were created, as I said a few moments ago, you were created on purpose for a specific purpose. And every waking hour ought to be aimed in fulfilling that. So at the outset, let me declare this. You are a king now and nothing less. Every man was created to be a king. But not every man knows that, nor every man accepts that as the mandate, calling, and purpose for his life. Not every man fully, really knows that. What am I saying? Every area in your life is supposed to be flourishing and thriving as a result of your direct influence. When a king exerts his influence over an area, that arena is reflective of his authority, his control, his power. That area becomes a representation by extension of who he is. When a man properly and rightly walks in his divine purpose and calling, and he, with every waking breath, labors and strives for the maximum yield in that area and the maximum best, when he's successful in that arena, when he dominates that arena, that man is a king. I want you, brother, to know that domination is not a dirty word. Domination is not a dirty word. It is what you're dominating and how you're dominating that can be construed or that can be recognized or utilized as wrong or in the wrong manner. But the word itself is not a dirty word. God dominates. He dominates everywhere and at all times. And we were created in his image and in his likeness. And so everything about him is supposed to be represented in me. Every attribute of God is supposed to also be evidenced in me. Every attribute of God is supposed to be evidenced in you. Every attribute. He's all wise. Now, I can't be all wise, but I can have wisdom. The wisdom is an attribute of God. It is a manifestation of God. Therefore, that ought to also be an attribute of me, an attribute of you. He is mighty. That ought to be an attribute. He is almighty. I'm not almighty, but I ought to be mighty. Might ought to be reflected by what I do. And so whatever attribute is safely ascribed to God also ought to be, through extension, ascribed to you. And every area where you have influence ought to be and will be reflective of that. And during Tuesday nights, we're going to sharpen our iron. We're going to dig deep. We're going to share introspective. We're going to correct our thinking, because as a man thinks, so is he. Your life looks just like the way you think. Your yield, the fruit in your life, is a direct representation of how you think. Now, we begin tonight, and let me just insert this. The internet connections in the areas, the storm passed through early, and so the internet connection might be a little shoddy, but I trust that it's recording and you'll be able to go back and replay and capture and reconnect with the message. Some will watch it on delay automatically anyway at different hours. But when we come, we'll be 8 p.m. on Tuesday Eastern Standard Time. And if that time is ever to vary or change, we'll let you know well in advance. But I want you to come, and I want you to come ready, and I want you to come with a degree of seriousness to obtain something. Each time you come, it is my hope and aim that you're going to walk away with something powerful, a fresh, powerful revelation and perspective that'll equip you and arm you to go off and attack an old problem with a new mind and new insight, and steadily transforming your situation. So now, you are a king. Whether you recognize it or not, you sit over a kingdom. You are a king, and you sit over a kingdom. There are several core attributes. I want to talk about 3. There are several core attributes. I've already mentioned one, which is, amen, you are, which is wisdom. We're going to start with wisdom. And tonight, I'm going to be brief. I'm just literally setting the stage. I want to whet your appetite. I want to give you an idea about what we're going to be aiming to do, and the impact that I hope to have with the time that we have. While we start out small, everything starts small. I don't despise that they are small beginning. There may be a handful tonight, but I believe by this time next year that the screen will be full with hundreds and thousands tuning in all manner. We want to be going to YouTube Live. We're going to be Zooming. We're going to be Microsoft Teaming. We're going to be Google Meeting. We're going to be Periscoping. We're going to get the word out in every possible way. If we have to get picket fences and signs and whatever we got to do to get the word out, my aim is to connect with men, powerful men, and to make them more powerful. I don't care how good you are, what you do. By the time we get done on Tuesday, you're going to be better at that than when you tuned in, when you logged on. You're going to be richer. You're going to be wiser, more impactful, more introspective. More aggressive where aggression is necessary, more withheld where being reserved and being controlled and disciplined is necessary. You're going to be more engaging where that's necessary. Whatever is necessary at whatever juncture stage, it is my aim that you will be that. You will be all of that. More compassionate. The king has to have an element of compassion. The king has to have an element of discipline. You cannot reign and not be disciplined. You have to have wisdom. You have to have compassion. You have to have discipline. You have to have a lot of attributes, and we're going to be dealing with those attributes first and foremost. And then we're going to dig deep into certain principles. And then we're going to explore certain iconic people historically, and what was it that made their kingdom unique. And then we're going to talk about ways that you have to establish your kingdom and ways that you have to expand on your kingdom after you have established your kingdom. Now, why do I have this confidence about you being a king? Where does that originate? Because the word of God, the Bible teaches us that Christ is King of kings. You are a king. I believe that a kingdom, and we live in a time where there are a variety of government forms, democracies and autocracies, and there are authoritarian regimes, and there are all kinds of governmental systems and political systems. But I believe that the true form of government of man, the natural state, is a monarchy where there is a king, a noble king, an honest king, a genuine king, a passionate king, a king that loves his people, a king that governs with wisdom and compassion and truth and integrity. I believe that that's the purest form. And I believe that in that form, there are certain benefits, not only for the king, but most importantly, for the people that the king represents. As much as the king belongs to the people belong to the king. One is a reflection of the other. When one prospers, the other automatically prospers. When a husband prospers, the wife automatically prospers. When a husband or father prospers, the family automatically prospers. Everything everything is an extension of the founding thing. And that's some of the things that we're going to be talking about, working on, dealing with, and focused on. Now, I'm not going to sermonize, but I want to set up tonight this first scripture that's going to shape the title, The King, and why that title was chosen. Isaiah 6 reads in poetic language about an encounter that the prophet Isaiah has. But in this encounter, he makes this particular statement that I want to draw our attention to tonight. I want you to witness what happens in this encounter, what is revealed in this encounter, and then what begins or what transpires as a result of this encounter. Isaiah 6 says this, and I'm reading from the King James Version, and this is what it says. It says, in the year that King Uzziah died, Isaiah speaking in the first person, I saw also the Lord. In the same year that he witnessed the death of King Uzziah, he also saw the Lord, singular, sitting upon a throne. It is important how you see God and how you therefore see yourself. When you have a proper view, we're going to show you, when you have a right view of him, you'll have a more accurate view, a right view of yourself. Watch this. He said, I saw the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up. Pay attention to that. Pay attention to that. He saw him, the Lord, sitting high and lifted up. He was sitting upon a throne. He was sitting on it. He was high and lifted up. That's a strange phraseology. He was seated high and lifted up. There is need for investigation. We're going to have to spend some time investigating that latter part, and lifted up. What did Isaiah see? He saw the Lord. He saw a throne. He saw the Lord sitting. In regal repose, he saw the Lord sitting upon a throne. We need to separate in our minds the throne from he that sat on the throne. There's several distinctions we need to make. I want to talk. I don't want to preach, but this is a text and it's pulling on me to preach, and I don't want to do that tonight. But stay with me. We need to isolate several components here because there's a lot of stuff that I could just run with. We see the Lord. That's a whole, I could spend a month just on that. And then we see him sitting. I could spend another month just on the fact that the Lord is seated. He's seated. He's sitting. He's not running. He's not standing. He's seated. Sitting has a connotation about it. There's a certain rendering in the heart when I see a king seated. He's in control. He's rested. He's a king. He's not arguing with anyone, because kings don't argue. Kings, queens don't argue. He's seated. I want you to instill in your day a time when you just sit and think, silent, and sit silently. For a time, I want you to get comfortable in your day having a set time where you sit silently. You're not doing anything but just sitting silently. I want you to get an image of yourself sitting silently, in command, in control, balanced, focused, meditating, thinking, sitting. Sitting is a powerful view. Sitting. The Lord sitting on a throne. The Lord is sitting on a throne. Therefore, the throne is not greater because he's sitting on it. The throne isn't greater than the one that sits on it. The throne isn't the throne until the one that sits on it sits on it. The sitter makes the throne the throne. The throne doesn't have any weight on its own. What makes it a throne is this is where the king sits. When I was younger, one of my grandmothers had in her home a chair. It was a prodigious chair, a distinguished chair, a heavy chair. It was a prominent chair, and it always sat in one particular place. Over the years of her life, she lived well into her 80s before she passed away. This chair always sat in one place. Over the years, the furniture throughout the house would change, but never that chair. That chair never changed. It sat in one place and it never moved. It was never, ever in any other place but where it was. It sat there. And we would, as children, we were raised up, we would go over to visit and play. It was an unwritten rule. No one ever said it, but it was just understood. Even as a child, I understood you don't sit in that chair. If she wasn't in that chair, you couldn't sit in that chair because that chair belonged to the queen. And no one was permitted, allowed, expected, or tolerated to sit in that chair. It had just as much influence and power and presence whether she sat in it or not. But what made the chair powerful was that the chair belonged to her. The chair had residual power. It had inferred power because she lent the chair its power. She gave the chair purpose. The chair didn't give her purpose. She gave the chair purpose. The chair was something because she made it something with her presence. And her presence was so powerful that even when she wasn't sitting in it, the chair became associated with her and thus represented her because of her influence over us. Am I talking to anybody that's listening to me tonight? What I'm saying to you, if you will walk in who you are and who you were created to be, if you will be stingy with your influence in terms of how you relegate your craft and your time in your craft and how you devote yourself to it, and that you'll be the message that you send, if you will stand firm in who you are and what you are about, if you'll be stingy with your influence and not allowing your name to be associated with anything that's not consistent with your purpose, people will begin to recognize the artifacts and your accessories as representations of who you are. You'll give those things validity by the strength of you being who you are. So much so that when she wasn't in that chair, she was in that chair. when she wasn't physically sitting in that chair, the memory that she sat in that chair was so powerful that we knew that we hadn't earned the right to sit in that chair. And so I remember, this is the truth. I remember going by the house and touching the chair. It was a privilege to touch the chair because she sat in this chair. And I remember having cousins, and we would be playing, and somebody would fall on the chair, and somebody would accidentally bump up against the chair, and we would pause because we knew that you don't touch that. You don't play. One of our cousins climbed up onto it one time, and everybody almost lost their mind. You don't, not that chair. The only one in this house worthy to sit in that chair is her. She's the queen. The reason why Isaiah only sees the Lord sitting is because he's the only one worthy to sit in that seat. There ought to be something about the way you conduct your business, something about the way you dress, something about the way you speak, something about the way your home is arranged, your affairs are arranged, something about the way you do your life that people ought to know you are regal and royal, and that you are here to dominate, and that your influence is exuding and exerting beyond the boundary of where you are. People ought to know in the manner in which they deal with you that they're dealing with someone special, and the someone special is a king. My brother, I'm saying to you tonight emphatically, you are not going to be a king. You are a king. And I want you to assume and accept this as your identity. This is who you are. You were a king before the earthly name that you now live under was ascribed to you. Before that earthly name was given to you, there was a divine purpose for your life to establish the fact that you are a king. And we're going to deal with in the coming months how all of the life events were set up in your life to test you, to strip from you certain things, to deal with you, to craft, mold, and make you a certain way in shaping you for the time of your reign. This is your season to reign. This is your season to reign. I've been sent to say it tonight. This is your time to reign, and you're going to have to make certain decisions. You're going to have to make certain decisions. Let me back up and still deal with that chair. I'm not done with that chair. That chair was important because that chair became, before I even knew and understood what a throne was, that chair became a throne. That chair became a throne. It was a privilege whenever she sat in it. It was a privilege. There was a rocking chair, a wooden rocking chair that was in other parts of the room. And it was a privilege that whenever she sat in the chair, whoever wanted to talk with her would get the rocking chair and set it next to this chair and sit in the rocking chair and talk with her. Now, the rocking chair had nowhere near the status and stature and importance of that chair. But it was where we put it in order to talk to her closely and intimately and personally. And I remember on many occasions getting the rocking chair and sitting it next to her chair and talking to her and receiving wisdom and insight and understanding the history of the family and why certain conditions are the way that they are, heard certain events that have unfolded to make our family what it is. That it was a privilege to stand next to that chair and place my hand on a chair and talk to her. I would come home from my time in the military and I would see her sitting in that chair and she would smile and I would walk over and hug and kiss her as she sat in that chair. From this chair, my grandmother ruled the family. She gave commands from this chair. She summoned information from this chair. She ordered her food from this chair. She had her food brought to her to this chair. She conducted the family affairs from this chair. This chair was the family throne. And she ruled well. My grandmother was so influential that she could wave her hand and we knew what the hand wave meant. She would look at you a certain way. If you were not in line and you weren't doing something you were supposed to be doing, she could look at you a certain way and you knew, you interpret, you read that look, you knew what that look meant, and you got your act together. And if you didn't get your act together, somebody in the room would help you know what act you needed to get together. She was the truth before I knew what the word truth meant. Now, what's interesting, I share a family fact. What's interesting, at the age of 44, she suffered a stroke that left her debilitated on one side. So she did not have the physical capacity to do a lot of things. And her speech was somewhat a little slurred, but you could understand her. And yet from that condition, she ruled the family with a nod, with a statement. Her question was a statement. She could ask one question and the question was now, when I ask a question, my question is an interrogative statement. But when she asked the question, her question was a statement in and of itself. She would come and she'd ask you, where you been? And where you been don't mean tell me the physical location where you been. Where you been means, why has it been so long since you've been here? Why have not you been here? Am I talking to anybody? Where you been means, why am I just now seeing you here now? Her questions was a statement. But through the things she experienced, through the things she suffered, through the things she had witnessed, she had become a queen, and she learned how to let her authority work for her. Your authority works through your influence, brothers. Your authority rides on the wave of your influence. Your authority and influence are synonymous. They're interwoven. Don't ever do anything to undermine your influence, because when you undermine your influence, you undermine your authority. Don't ever do anything to undermine your authority, because when you undermine your authority, you undermine your influence. One of the ways you can undermine your authority is contradicting yourself. Never be a self-contradiction. Never go against yourself. Never work against yourself. Never speak against yourself. You undermine your own authority when you contradict yourself. Be a man of principle. Let your yes be yes, your no be no. If you say go, go. If you say don't go, don't go. Be true to your own word. Be true to your word. If you said you're going to do it, whatever it takes for you to fulfill that, then do it. Whatever it costs you, then do it. If you said it, then it ought to be. Everybody that knows you need to know at least one thing firmly about you, that he will do whatever he say. You can't be a king and not honor your word. Yes, there will be times you fall short because of something that you didn't know, something beyond your control. I'm not talking about the events and circumstances that occur that happen beyond your control. I'm talking about those moments wherein you never intended to fulfill what you said, or when you had an opportunity to fulfill it, you did not take the opportunity. If it comes out of your mouth, it ought to be as good as gold. It ought to be as see-through as glass. It ought to be as strong as a storm if it comes out of your mouth. And when you honor your own word, there is inherent in that discipline, that standard, an accompanying authority and influence. Influence and authority accompanies every word that comes out of the mouth of a king. A king aims every word. None of your words are rashly spoken. None of your actions are haphazardly done. There must be a consideration before you speak. There's evaluation, there's analysis, there's contemplation before you act. You can never, as a king can never take a reckless act. Irresponsibility can never be associated with a king. Now watch this. From the chair she ruled. A king cannot be argumentative. A king is not called to be a debater. A king can never be a gossiper. A king cannot be a backbiter. A king cannot be irresponsible with time. A king cannot be a poor manager of resources. A king cannot be an abuser of people. A king must not only be regal and royal in presentation, but a king must be regal and royal in contemplation. The manner in which you need to think of every possible scenario, every possible ramification or consequence of whatever it is that you're trying to do, whatever it is you might say, or whatever it is you may cause to happen. You need to be considerate. You need to consider every move. Have you considered your move? A king, listen to me carefully. A king can never take an act without certainty of what the outcome will be. A king cannot act until he knows what the outcome is going to be. Do you know what's going to happen before you do that? If you don't know what's going to happen, then you have no business doing that. That's irresponsibility. And you can always know what will happen. We're going to talk about that extensively. In the coming weeks on Tuesdays, we're going to talk about that. And you might ask, okay, I want that. I want to operate in that level right there. You can operate in that level. You can always know what the consequence will be before you speak, before you act. You need to always know what the consequences, what the effect of what I say. God knows what's going to happen when he say a thing before he says a thing. He knows what's going to happen when he does a thing before he does a thing. So I'm created in that same image and likeness. So before I say a thing, I need to know what's going to be, what's going to happen as a consequence of this. Before I do a thing, I need to know what it's going to be before I make, because every thought, every word, every action has a consequence. I'm speaking generally tonight. I'm going to go in depth. This tonight is not to go into depth. I'm just introducing where we're going, brothers. And it's going to be intensive as the week goes on. It's going to get deeper and more intensive and more. It's going to bite. It's going to hurt. It's going to sting, because there's going to be some things that you're going to have to adjust and hear. Because once you come into the knowing of a thing, once you come into the knowledge of a thing and a standard, now it's important that you do that thing. So a king cannot be timid. A king cannot be easily pushed over. You got to have some resolution about yourself. You got to have a constitution about yourself. You got to have some standing. So that means there's a lot of things that you got to work on and consider. And we're going to be working on those things. We're going to be better men as a consequence. At the end of this time that we're going to spend over the next few weeks and months, you're going to amen. You're going to be a different man on November 10th, 2021. If Jesus tarries and we have time, by this time next year, you're going to be another man. I don't care what you do but meet me here on Tuesdays. Tuesdays, 8 p.m. You got an assigned place to be. Schedule everything around 8 p.m. on Tuesdays because it's going to be intensive. Let me finish digging here. And tonight is random. I'm not structured tonight. I'm just giving you a taste of where we're going. All right, watch this. He says he sees him sitting on a throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. The train of his robe filled the temple. During medieval times, you could tell the size of a king's kingdom by the size of his robe. If a king had a small kingdom, he had a small robe and a short train. If he had a medium or moderate sized kingdom, his robe was reflective of that. There was only a certain length to the train of his robe. But if the king had a very large kingdom spanning continents or countries or multiple locations, his robe indicated such. He had a long train to his robe. This verse does not say that the one that sat on the throne had a long train. It says that his train filled the whole temple. The train of his robe filled the entire temple. This was not, I want to testify tonight, this was not an ordinary king. This was not your mother's king. This is not your father's king. This is not the king of England. This is not the king. This is a whole nother level of king here. This is a whole nother level. Watch this. Stay with me. Isaiah knew he was seeing something profound when he looked at the train. He noticed that the train filled the temple. Anything God forms, he fills. Listen to what I'm trying to say to you. That's a principle in that. Anything God forms, he fills. Anything you form, you ought to fill it. Anything you build, anything you fashion, anything you establish, anything you work or do, everything God formed, he formed the oceans and filled them. He formed the skies and he filled them with clouds and birds. He formed the land and filled them with animals and trees, and everything he forms, he fills to capacity. It's not done until you do it to capacity. It's not done until every attribute ascribed to what you're doing yields the word maximum associated with it. In other words, the maximum yield possible is your goal in everything. Make it yield the maximum. Not the minimum, but the maximum. Make it yield it. You're a king. Make it yield the maximum. Ask yourself, why isn't it yielding the maximum? If it's not yielding the maximum, then there is a reason, and you need to be getting to the heart of that reason. And then whatever that reason is, override that reason with a greater reason to make it yield the maximum. You cannot accept the minimum when you know that the maximum is available. Why would I accept the minimum when I know that there's a maximum? See, a king would never do that. A king would never accept the minimum. A king would never do that. A king would never become complacent with less than what's possible. It's the maximum of nothing. My maximum. It's got to yield. If God is in it, it's got to. I tell you how you know if a thing is God, if God is in a thing. Is it yielding abundantly? If it's not yielding abundantly, he's not in it. Anything he's attached to, anything he's associated with, anything he's involved in will yield abundantly. There's a pattern all throughout the scripture that indicates that. You are a king, and I refuse to allow you to accept less than the maximum, less than the absolute total of what is supposed to be yielded. You are supposed to be frustrated if what you're looking at all around you is not consistent with your dream. If what you're looking at around you does not and is not married to your dream, then that is not and can never possibly be what God is satisfied with from you. You have got to accept the need to destroy everything going on and replace it with the maximum, the total of what your dream is supposed to be yielding. I wish I had some help. You ought to be on a destroy mission. There ought to be some stuff in your life you're looking around that you're simply not going to accept anymore, and you ought to start throwing out. You ought to start throwing away. You ought to start breaking and throw that out. And now because you took the only one of that, you got to go buy something new now. Now you got to go and get something, replace it, and it's got to be better. It's got to be better. Even if you got to go a week without an ironing board, or you got to throw away your iron and the ironing board. If it's not the best, then you got to rid yourself of that. You know what? There's better. There's better. There's better for me. I cannot stand less than what's possible any longer. Everything ought to match your dream. Look around. Does it match the dream? Then you're not done. Then you're not there yet. Listen to me. The last time you got paid, if the last time you got paid matches the last time you got paid, then you're not operating in the area where you're supposed to be yet. There's no increase. Am I talking to anybody? If the last time you got paid isn't more than the last time you got paid, there's been no increase. Then if there's been no increase, there's been no change. There's been no growth. Okay, and I can't be satisfied with this then, because this does not speak to king. Everything about a king is ever increasing, ever expanding, ever expanding, more. Jesus went all around the Sea of Galilee, and then he went further. And then he's in Judea, and he's in now Samaria, and now he's all the way up in Tyre and Sidon and Lebanon. He's ever expanding. He's going further. And then when he reached this earthly limit, he tells his disciples, now you go therefore into all the world. He removed the localized, regionalized, and expanded it. Amen. He expanded it. He said, now go into all the world. Go into all the world. You got to go into all the world. You ought to be doing business across county lines, across state lines, go into all the world until they're hearing about you in places you hadn't physically been. By the time Jesus reached Tyre and Sidon, they had already heard about him. Because he maximized the moment. When he was in a place dealing with a thing, he maximized that. What's going on? He just died. Okay. All right. Well, I'm not going to do a eulogy and a funeral. I'm going to call him back to life. He maximized it. What's going on here? He's blind. Okay. I'm not going to leave him blind. I'm going to maximize this. I'm going to give him his sight back. What's going on? You got issues with your blood? Okay, that's no problem. I'll tell you what. And what else? You lost all your money dealing with the doctors and it got better and now you don't have any friends. Okay, I'll tell you what. I'll stop the flow of the blood and I'm going to make you whole, which means I got to give you all the money back. I'm going to give you your life back. If you've been bleeding for 12 years, then you ain't had no man. So I'm going to bring a man into your life just by stopping that. And I'm going to fix everything until everything is like new. I ain't just going to tend to one area. I'm going to maximize the blessing. I'm going to maximize this moment. I'm going to maximize it. He went at everything with a maximum mentality. He went at everything with a maximum mentality. Maximize everything. For now, when you go to McDonald's, get the upside. Don't ever order don't. When you order a drink from now on, order the largest drink version they have. From now, I mean, you apply this everywhere to your mindset, changing every area. When you go to the gas station, don't you ever in your life again not fill up. And you only buy 93. You will never buy 87 and 89 ever again. You will I don't care what it leaves you with. You will buy nothing but 93 and you will only fill up. You're going to maximize everything. You're going to maximize everything. If the air in your tire calls for 35 pounds, then you're going to put 36 in it. You're going to maximize it. How can I say that? Give me some verse on that. Give me some Bible on that, where Jesus did. He said, if someone asks you to go with them 1 mile, he said, go with them 2. That's Jesus. That's Bible. He maximized it. He said, somebody asks you for your shirt. He said, that's nothing. Give him your coat also. He maximized it. He said, forgive until 7 times. No. We don't do that here. Until 70 times 7. Jesus maximized it. A king maximizes it. A queen maximizes it. You got one mentality and one mentality only as a king. Maximize it. The max. Until everybody knows you what's coming. No, he's not going to do that. Don't even, no. He's going to max it. You have to buy it. You're going to have to do that over because he's not going to accept that. This is when you know your influence is working. When people who you're not even in the moment, but somebody else is talking about you and the other person is about to make a decision, do something that won't meet your standard, and the other person corrects them and tells them, no, that ain't going to work. He's not going to even roll with that. I can tell you right now, he's not going to even accept that. The max. I'm trying to change your life by changing the way you think, changing your standards, changing your practices. Give the maximum. I mean, something's got to change. So giving the minimum doesn't move God. Giving the maximum does. Cain and Abel come to God with their offering. Cain brings God the okie-doke, the average, the common, the regular, the little, the minimum. And God never moved on it. He didn't even accept it. Abel comes and presents God of the firstlings, the first, the best, the first part. And the Bible said God respected that. Let me tell you what I'm trying to tell you. Do it in a way that calls God to respect it. Whatever you do, ask yourself this when you do it. Does God respect it? Does God respect it? If God, could I offer this to God? Whenever you're doing something, whatever your business is, whatever your job is, whatever it is, ask yourself, could I offer this to God? Would he accept this? Is what I'm doing acceptable to him? Can I give a holy, eternal, all-loving, all-wise God this? Is this fit to give the king? Let me tell you something. It's a poor statement when a king gives a bad gift. It's a poor statement when a king gives a poor gift. How can you be a poor king? How can you be a broke king? How can you be a frightened king? How can you be a weak king? That's inconsistent. You can't be weakness and king do not go together. All right. What's my time? All right. Give me 5 minutes and I'm gonna get you done tonight, and then we're gonna go into we just starting. You got questions, type them in, email me, amew.live@gmail.com. Watch this. This broadcast is going out all over. Watch this. He noticed the size of the train of the robe was immense because it filled the whole temple. Notice that where he sees him is synonymous with a temple. You didn't catch what I just said. Notice where he sees him is synonymous with a temple. That's a powerful view. He was seated in a temple. Your home ought to be temple clean. Your closet ought to be in temple order. Your shoes ought to be arranged because your home is your temple. Until it looks like a temple. Watch this. And in it he saw the angelic host, the seraphims. Verse 3, he heard the seraphims proclaiming or exclaiming the holiness of the one that sat. And then they declared that the whole earth is full of his glory. Now, of the ones that proclaimed, when they proclaimed, the temple shook. The post of the temple shook. I want to point out a couple of facts and I'm going to let you go. I'm shaping up our minds. The proclaimers voice thunders and shakes the posts. So if their voice could shake the post, I wonder what God's voice could do. For voice, I'm not talking about merely the sound, but the standing of it. When certain politicians or certain celebrities back a cause, it is said that they lend their voice to it. In other words, their standing, their stature, their influence, they lend their voice to it. So voice is not only the sound that is articulated from your body when you speak, but also the standing that you have in the hearts and minds of people. Be mindful, my brothers, of what you lend your voice to. Because even the angels, when they spoke, their voice caused a shaking. Last thing. Verse 5. This is what I really wanted to tell you tonight, and we're going to be done. Then said I, woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For mine eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. Notice that by seeing God correctly, he saw himself rightly. When he caught a glimpse of God, he noticed his incompleteness. He says, I'm undone. I'm not to be compared. He's holy. And it immediately showed him where his work. He said, my speech is out of order. My lips are unclean. By seeing him right, he saw himself right or not right. And by seeing himself, he knew what he needed to correct and address. Brothers, we got some work to do. We got some work to do. Everything that your hands touch, everything that your hands touch, everything that your heart conceives, everything that your words address, I want you to maximize. I want you to aim. I want you to improve that. I want you to make it better until everyone associated with you change the way they see you. It's time for you to be a king, to walk in your natural authority as a king. You're never arguing ever again in your life about anything. You're never profane, and so you'll never use profanity. You're always balanced. You're always in control. You're always where you're supposed to be. You're always abundantly supplied. You're always on the giving side. That's the power side. Your affairs are in order. Your dwelling is in order. Everything about you speaks to king. This man, that man is a king. God bless you tonight. I want to see you Tuesday night right here. Invite your brothers, your cousins, your uncles, your employees, your friends, supervisor, the boss, whoever. Invite other men. Tonight, we just starting, but there's more to come. Yours truly, Bishop Kevin Bufford. A More Excellent Way. God bless you. See you soon. Don't forget what I always say, that Jesus is a more excellent way. God bless you tonight.